Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahweh. It's the name of the Father. This means bless you, Yahweh, and bless you, Yahweh Shai in the Hebrew tongue. Call Haloyim Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash. Let's give it all glory, honor, and praises due to our powers, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, his son, in the Holy Spirit, whom we praise. Double honor to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone who rule well over the flock of Israel. Shalom and salutation to you, Akim, out here pushing the words of truth and sincerity. Shalom to all the Lord's elect, Akim, Aqua, scattered Israelites and Israelite foreigners. Abarat, this is transforming lives, the church as a resource for healing and growth. Um, this topic came to me. I was having a conversation um, with uh, an older man about his, prison term, and it came to my idea. I had an idea that people who serve life sentences aren't put strategically aren't placed in the same area of people who aren't serving life sentences. And this person who had did some time, I'm asking them, could they break that down? And they gave me this whole, answer that confirmed that, it was confirmation. They don't put the lifers in the same area as those who have less time. Like if you got 10 years, 5 years, you're put in a different area than those who have life or those who have 80, 50 years. And that's very strategic because it all goes back to the company you keep. The studies have proven over and over again that based upon the company you keep, there you are, that's who you will be. There's a saying, a quote that's out there, and it goes, "You are the average of the five people you spend the most time with." All right. There's other quotes I can read, but mainly this everything is revolving around 1 Corinthians 15:33, which says, "Bad company corrupts good character," or "Bad company corrupts good manners." Some translations, the word character basically goes into what you see on the bottom of the screen pinned, the word ethos, which usage is how you're used, right? What use you have and how you are used. You're a tool, and the Lord has set us up to be tools in these end times. So the proper usage versus how you're being used can be two different things based on who you're around. If you're around bad company, you're not going to be used how the Lord expects you to be used. Again, the word ethos here means usage. Also, it's moral habits. So basically, it means manners, your character also. So we're dealing with the character of Israel. And as you go on, as you in your daily lives, you see, you online or you scrolling, you swiping, you'll see how much bad character is just spreading like wildfire, especially amongst Jake. Why is all the bad character, the bad poor manners, the bad communication, the corruptness spreading amongst Israel? Well, for the first part, Israel doesn't know who they are. There's a lot of still lost sheep out here. The context of understanding who you are as a nationality has nothing to do with what you tell yourself in the mirror. If it's not true, you're going to put on something that's not of you. Mainly, what we saw in the ancient world was that Israelites began to develop a love for the Greco-Roman world. And what they began to do in the Greco-Roman era, when Greece and Rome had dominance over the world, they began to put on the things in the context. The language was just the beginning. But because you were conquered by these people, you began to and begin to behave like these people who took your who dominated your spaces. They dominated your world. They dominated your finances. They dominated your our religion, our customs, up until the point where the next generation began to be educated and developed since young ages based upon how the Greeks and Romans would do. And now you had Hellenism, or the Greek speaking Jew. You had the Roman Jew, right? Which Paul was a Roman Jew, but he kept to these principles, and he was taught by the Sadducees or Pharisees. He was a Pharisee of the Pharisees. He was taught the law, but he was still considered a Jew. He was born in Tarsus, which is, I believe, modern day Spain, or it could be, Turkey, if I'm not mistaken, either Turkey or Spain. And so again, where you grow up and everything revolving around how you developed as a child, we all came from more than likely you was born in Babylon, America, raised in America. And so you learned, the conduct and the development that American teachers taught you. All right, or your parents was able and capable of taught you. Go to school, do this, and this is the way of life. But the scriptures um allude to an end time and a time of Jacob's trouble. It alludes to prophetic ages to come, the age of the return of Yahweh Shah and the setting up of the kingdom of heaven. So rightly so, we're not in that whole how do we get ahead and continue to develop as Americans. We more or less has put off that, not even less, but put off that whole idea of how to develop as an American. And now you're responsible um to develop as an Israelite of the Most High, not even just the Israelite. You can't be an American or Babylonian Israelite, AI, an American Israelite. You have to actually believe and trust in the ways that lead into salvation. Again, we fight for our salvation. We're not fighting for a penny in the side. We're not fighting for the love of our enemies. All right, we can care less. We understand that the Heavenly Father dominates in the world, in man's world. All right, man's goings is of the Lord. He turneth the ways of the king's hearts whithersoever he will. Judgment is always sitting. Judgment is a part of the throne and the foundation of the throne that the Heavenly Father sits upon. And so all things will be judged in these end times, including your character. What's really on display right now is character, the character of those in other camps, the character of the false prophets, the character of the world leaders. Everything's on display as far as characteristics of these things. So again, this is just an overview of character and what that means to have good character in these last days. So, I'll just refer to the first scripture. But these I found a few like what you're seeing right now, community participation. I found a few articles. These articles are research articles that they had actual studies on every from time to time. Brothers, check these out. So they did a study, and they brought people together to see what became from these or so-called community rehab programs that they set up, and they're trying to see the effects of it. So this one was a positive, and a lot of them become positive because they realize that who you're around and how you're being taught and how you're being trained has everything to do with the skills that you'll be able to have and to deal with real world problems and create solutions for yourself. This is what cultivates critical thinking. And when you're amongst the body, sometimes we get thrown off by this idea, you just on your own. You just show up to camp and you preach and then you leave. Now there's a whole thing going on outside of that. There's a whole build up to your character that's supposed to be happening. And if you don't feel like you're getting built up in the spirit, you're not you're not you're not engaging in the way you were set up to. You're not being used the way you're supposed to, because you're supposed to be learning real skills. All right. So community participation and life satisfactions following intensive community-based rehabilitation using the life skills training approach. So they found out that works out. What they did is say here, the pilot study examined the effects of intensive community-based life skills training programs on community integration and life satisfaction among individuals with traumatic brain injuries. Statistically significant improvements were found for subjects receiving intensive life skills training. So what's going to happen? And there's review after review. I got another one pulled up. You're not going to be able to find it, but it basically says the same thing. Well, you're not going to be able to see it. You can find it if you type in a review of social participation interventions for people with mental health problems. It goes on to say 19 interventions from 14 countries were identified. So they used a large trial. It said, basically, they found the same thing. That the size of social networks can be used as a measure of isolation and connectedness. Blah blah blah. I'm trying to find the point here. Basically, interventions, that focus on social participation or participation have positive effects, enhance diversity of one's network and connections they're able to make. All right, that was one review. That one's a little longer. And the third one I looked up or I found, it just show you, and this is quick, man. It ain't gonna be long into these reviews. Effectiveness of social skills training groups in persons with severe mental illness. It's the study to evaluate the effectiveness of social skills training. And the occupational therapy unit. What this is all going into is how they was able to help and heal people with different mental disorders, right? Everything from schizophrenia to bipolar, just by putting them in these programs that helped with social skills for 2 weeks. It says they already seen benefits for these people. The social skills group training protocol seems to be effective and feasible for this Indian population, the population that they did it on. What does this all mean? This all means that through the spirit and power, Yahweh Shemel Shah, you ain't just come back to this truth, really. Um, um, it the Lord set up the body. Let's speak about the body in the church. The Lord set it up so that you could get the help and development that you need. You actually came in here like a child like state, being born again. You come in as a newborn babe, desiring the sincere milk, understanding that salvation is at stake. Your life is at stake. Your family's lives are at stake because the Lord is about to send famine and plagues and destroy this world in this kingdom. And so, you make an about face turn back towards the Lord, right? The scriptures tell you when you come to serve the Lord, seek him 10 times more. So now you amongst, the body, amongst the brotherhood. And what tends to happen now is you're going to develop because you're going to be in situations where you have to understand the context. You got to fight to understand what it means to resist temptation and resist Satan. And you got to fight to be amongst or to learn and to sit there in silence and to really learn how to regulate your emotions. You got to fight to develop the right way, the proper way, so that the Lord can use you. You got to relearn these characters traits. You've been amongst Babylon for so long that you probably more than likely came in with a whole bunch of bad character, or you was self-justifying. You felt righteous in your own. The whole idea is that you don't got it all. You don't got it all, but through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shem Yahshua, the Lord set up leaders. You're right. He set up the faculty, all right, amongst the body to be able to give you everlasting, give you the stages and everything you need so that you could be right, man. So lock it. Let me take this. I'm gonna remove this screen and I'm gonna put these precepts up. Yeah, give me 1 second. So this is what we have now, man. Again, the topic: transforming lives. The church has a resource for healing and growth, and that might sound all, I don't know how that probably comes off real, but that's what it is. This is what the church is also good for: the body, the brotherhood. We learn, we grow in this thing, man. You can't be stagnant, and you can't think you got it all and you know it all. Let's get into these precepts so I could drive the point home. Abaratazah. So Romans 13 and 11 says, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. Make sure this screen is being shared. All right, cool. So now is a high time to be awake out of sleep. So first thing that transforms is you not sleep now. You not got to know what that was. It says, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness and let us put on the armor of light. That goes into what I was saying earlier. These quotes, a single bad apple can spoil the whole barrel, or, a little leaven up the whole lump. There's another quote, good people bring out the good in others, bad company brings out the worst. Another quote, if you hang out with the chickens, you're going to cluck. If you hang out with the eagles, you're going to fly, So based upon who you're around, can actually change you for the better or for the worst. And when you come amongst the body, you around great men and great company. And so eventually that rubs off on you. Iron sharpeneth iron. And it gets you all kinds of just being associated with the believers, the faculty, the body of Yahweh Shah. You get all type of, blessings your way, whether you accounted on it or you didn't, whether you recognize it or not. Brothers learn how to be more chafed in the spirit, be more regulated, and deal with emotions, or deal with emotional conflicts, out. And that's also help, what you pray for, what you ask for in your prayers, what you ask Yahweh Shem El Shah for, and also, what you fast for. But just being amongst brothers in general, you pick up things and everything is going to be good. Now, the society is decaying, but on the contrary wise, you getting smarter, getting better, getting sharper. That's not a random occurring thing. That's strategic, that the Lord had us separate, right? Now, Ephesians 5, and them jump down, Ephesians 5:11, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. Again, this idea came back by, the notion, well, they keep prisoners separate based upon how much time they got. So if somebody has life, they're going to keep you who has 2 or 3 years left in a separate housing unit. You're never going to run into that guy, because naturally what that guy is thinking is how to keep people here with him, right? Misery loves company is the saying. All right. Now, let me see if I still have it pulled up. A little read, a quick paragraph I'm gonna read. It says, keeping lifers away from non-lifers in prisons is often based on several key reasons. Lifers may have less to lose, potentially leading to more violent and aggressive behavior. Lockie, let me get more into this, man. Lockie, mine was wondering for a little while. Lifers may have less to lose, and that's a fact. People who believe that they, or know that they have nothing but time, they ain't getting out, they ain't getting free, they behave different because they got less to lose. And if they got nothing to lose, you lose it. So potentially leading to more violent and aggressive behavior. So let's say we're not really talking about lifers in jail. That's just an example that's being used. But we're talking about people who believe that they're gonna have an everlasting life, or a long life to live here in Babylon, America. They're lifers in this situation, in this setup. They do have less to lose than you do, because you believe that you got a short time. We just read that in Romans. We are of those of the faith in the house that believe we got a short time, right? Romans 13:11, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. So we're of those that believe that we got a short time. Somebody is a lifer if they believe that they got a long life ahead of them in America. So they got less to lose, and potentially leading to more violent and aggressive behavior, because they got to take action now. Them people who's unsettled, they have no stillness for real. They're always thinking about what they need, what they don't have, or what they want. And they're really not gearing toward the day of the Lord at all. They're not expecting that. That's going to be an unexpected event for them. The non-lifers are often focused on rehabilitation and reintegration into society. So non-lifers, when you don't have a long bid in jail, you think about getting back out, going back, rehabilitating. So that's why brothers is able to focus on things of character, right? Manners. We have discussions on tact, discipline. We got discussions on not being like the heathen, staying, be ye holy as I am holy, which means separate. We have discussions on how you deal, how you eat around, around men. Discussions on your attitude adjustments and how to really bond, spiritually and not focus on the carnal and not be beaten day to day by the carnality. And, you know, we focus on things of rehabilitation, right? We're in a rehab program, if you will. For lack of better words, the body is being rehabilitated. Well, the scriptures tell you the body nourishes each itself and each other. So there's a part of your body that's cut, all the blood and the focus now of all the cells and whatnot is to rehab that part of the cut, that part of the body. Blood flows to that, causing it to coagulate. Now you got a clot that stops the bleeding, and then you have repair that goes on. Or if you work out, you breaking down a lot of fibers in your muscles, the protein synthesis along with the free radicals and other parts of the amino acids come together and start to rebuild and restructure those muscles so that they can be built up stronger than before. And so that's what's happening amongst the body. We being built up, whereas you got layers of it. You got layers. For the newest members, you got a layer that he needs to be rehabilitated, brought through, reintegrated into this truth. And then you got layers for brothers that's been in here 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 10, 15 years, right? Because our apostles have about 40 years each in it, give or take 5 years. Apostle Har is 40. I believe Apostle Gabar got 35 years. So you're dealing with men that have been reintegrated into this truth, for years, rehabilitated, and there's benefits to it. And so we're all reaping up these benefits. That's why we talk about giving double honors to our apostles for ruling well over Israel. I'm gonna read on. It says, additionally, separating these groups can help reduce conflicts and maintain order within the prison environment. So non-lifers and lifers need to be separated to maintain order. Lifers may also have different motivations and coping mechanisms compared to non-lifers, which can create tension. The presence of lifers can influence the behavior of non-lifers. So we're talking about influence now. It says potentially leading them to adopt more negative attitudes or actions. You see a negative attitude or action amongst the brothers, it's and he's not getting that from the other brothers. Let's say, there's a difference when a brother come from another camp, because that you'd have to know how that camp functions first to understand why the brother really operate that way. That might just be city specific, right? Why the brother got to operate a certain way. But let's say a brother just came into your camp and he's from that city and he's raised and around your brothers, but he got this bad attitude. That's coming from the world. That's coming from the environment he came from. But he got to learn how to navigate, and now he got to be able to be taught and trained, and he got to go through a rehab in order for him not to act like the negative behaviors that he grew up around. So it's very much a rehab. Again, brothers is coming from all types of parts of the world, country, bad influences everywhere. Esau done infiltrated the entire so-called black community. Look at black culture, and you'll see it's nothing but bad attitudes and negative actions and behavioral problems and emotional conflicts and relationship problems, educational disadvantages and money issues, and it's full of that. So you got to get rehabbed out of that world, and that takes a lot of time. So you also, it's a self-help thing. You got to want to seek the help, bro. A brother ain't gonna sit down 9 out of 10 times and just, all right, this is what you need. We're gonna put you on this diet unless you ask. First of all, you got to ask for it. And then maybe he'll consider it, but you got to ask. Just like if you learning a new trade, you got to go through the school. You got to go through the proper stages to learn that new trade. Let me finish out. Furthermore, the separation can facilitate tailored rehabilitation program. That's good on that. Let's get back into these scriptures. All right. So what we're reading about again is a separation between the two. The world, what you came from, got to be separate now so that you can get rehab and to understand that you can do better. And you could, you know, with the rehab comes a better way of thinking, better life, more tact, more manners. Right? What's that word manners mean again? Ethos, usage, moral habits, manners, and character. That's what we're trying to build. All right. Luke 21 and 34. And we don't got a lot of time to do this either. Everything is like a stage play. The chapter's end and the new chapter begins, and here you are. Luke 21 and 34, it says, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life. And so that they come upon you unawares. So you could easily be pulled back into something that you didn't want to be involved with if your heart get overcharged with that partying spirit or that being drunk all the time or caring for this world too much. You could be pulled right back into things that you didn't want to be pulled into in the first place, that you were trying to escape, things that don't lead to salvation at all. It says, and so that they come upon you unawares, and that's the whole idea. And it's a balance, of course. You know, you take yourself away too far, and you know, you don't know how to deal with the world at all. You know, so it's kind of like it's a balancing act. You know, it says, for as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. So Yahweh Shemel Shah wants us to be separate, making sure that you are guarded. You guard yourself from everything that can pull you back into the world. You gotta guard yourself. That's what you learn the truth. 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what accord hath Yahweh Shah with Belial? So you're gonna have a separation between those that are just have no guidance and those that do. You know, again, we got enough developing brothers or brothers to help you with your development around you. You got elders in your camp, you got order in your camp for that reason, so that you can come back and see what I need to be doing versus where I'm at, versus if I'm taking this truth as serious as I need to be. And that's what you have accountability for. That's what you have responsibility for. Men that are responsible for your salvation and your souls. So you got to seek to do right by them as well. They watching over for you and guiding for you. It says, in what part hath he that believeth with an infidel, and what agreement hath the temple with Yahweh with idols? For ye are the temple of the living power. As Yahweh hath said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their power, and they shall be my people. Wherefore, come out from among them and be ye separate. And that's a big call. When you come back to this truth, it's about, coming out of that way of the world, coming out of the practices. You getting a new guide when you have a tour guide. The tour guide, just because you see something like you like, he don't tell you, all right, so go ahead. You don't stop following the tour guide until the tour end. So we on a tour, and so you got to keep up with the tour. We got to keep teaching, keep practicing, rehearsing the righteous acts, staying motivated, being responsible for your vocation, for your job and your duty, serving Yahweh Shemel Shah, and understand that this is a manners and a custom thing that we learn. We being transformed by the renewing of your mind. We on a path of healing and growth, whereas the rest of them is on a path of destruction. So it's very much important who you around, what you're doing in your free time. All of that's important. It says, wherefore come out of them from among them and be ye separate, say the Lord, and touch no unclean thing, and I will receive you. And these go also hand in hand with false doctrines. Making sure that you're not, wavery, that you believe truly, that you steadfast, and Have integrity on the things you believe in, because eventually that integrity is going to get tested when that trial comes to test all men, which is a day hour of temptation, the MOTB implemented. You're going to see that unclean thing, you know, um, all these trials led up to that big trial, that major trial, not taking a mark. All right. So this thing of faith, man, and faith transforms. 1 Corinthians 15:33, be not deceived, evil communication corrupt good manners. So again, the reason why they separate the lifers from the non-lifers is because they could corrupt them. Violence is going to break out. So the lifers really they get sent to supermax jails, and the non-lifers get sent to like general population and whatnot. And the less amount of time you have, the more you gotta keep in mind, like you got to be on your P's and Q's, because you might have somebody attack you, and now next thing you know, you're given 2 more years. So the closer you get to your freedom, the more it's important it is for you to separate yourself from those of the world who could, or those who could stop you from getting that freedom. So eventually you look at everybody as a potential threat to your salvation if they not um this truth. Proverbs 13:20 says, he that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. So the more you I mean, that's self-explanatory right there. You got to walk with wise men. You're going to be destroyed walking otherwise. Ephesians 5:11, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them, meaning correct them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. So this is a reproving act. This is a restoration, a rehab that brothers is a part of. Again, we on the path of healing and growth. It look different. It feels different. You should be secure in understanding that. And now when you coming back to serve the Lord, right? Don't say seek him 10 times more. You got to wrap your mind around the fact that you're being bonded together with the right men, and just that communion amongst good men and good manners is going to help you out. You are the 5 people you surround yourself with. Okay. You can't soar with the eagles if you're walking amongst the trolls. That's the saying that our Irishman I used to work with told me. It's who you keep your company with. And sometimes Jake just want to be down, you want to be in, you want to be involved. So you actually, lessen your light just to be amongst people that really you ain't got no business dealing with. You gotta come to terms with yourself, whether you're gonna be, a child of Yahweh Shem Yahshua, seeking after discipline and hopefully be rewarded with those things that of everlasting life, those promises that the Lord made to us, or you gonna just go for nothing. That's just whatever this society got to offer. You just gonna fit in, get in where you fit in, and those are the unfruitful works of darkness that you want fellowship with. Well, maybe you're not cut out for this truth if you can't really put off those things that the world is all about. If you really need to have everything that everybody else has, you're not cut out for this. You actually got to separate yourself. You actually got to be all right with not making it that night, or not mixing up with these type of people, because you already know what that's going to develop in you, and you're on a path to develop something even greater, and it is rewarded. It's not just to be some type of supreme better than everybody else. It's not a holier than thou speech. This is more or less you trying to seek salvation, and that comes with a cost. And the cost is present your bodies as living sacrifices, and also your mind got to be uh you have to redeem the time. Your mind got to be directed towards the Lord's purposes. All right, which means you hot now. That's what getting hot is, being fervent in the spirit, directing your mind towards the Lord's mission. Your usage, your manners, what you're used for is as vessels of honor, and vessels of uplifting Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, prophesying. You used for the right thing instead of being wielded or yielding your members towards evil. You being yielding them now towards Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, man. So it's gonna feel different. You're gonna feel brand new. You should, renewing up your mind daily. You should feel brand new. You should feel like things are starting to add up. Things are starting to connect. Yeah, you missing out on. You can name them. You can't even name them on your hand anymore. So many events and so many days that you just, rather sit home and just chill and relax than being out and about. And that helps you. Every day you fight against the spirit. I mean the flesh. Every day you got to fight against the flesh. That's an accomplishment. That's accomplished in the brotherhood, you know. That's a brother getting stronger and more fervent in the spirit, you know, and you able to help out the brotherhood even more now because you more serious, more concerned with the body. You know, you more helpful. Like the body's concerned with the body. Like you know, you get that cut in your hand and the body going to be concerned. If it was unconcerned, you will bleed out, you know. Um, it says in Ephesians 5:11, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them, for it is a shame even to speak those things which are done of them in secret. It's Matthew 7:6. Give not that which is holy unto dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again to rend you. This is dealing with our communion, the things that we talk about, you know, things that we politic on, you know, those good manners and prophecies and things of that nature. Those are holy things, separate things than the world's talking about. Now, the dogs, they're beasts. They can't differentiate what's holy versus what's unholy. And it's not talking about physical dogs here, it's talking about people. People are likened unto dogs and swine because the people will take a holy thing and rend it the same way a dog would or a swine would. Neither cast ye your pearls among swine. So these pearls and these good holy things that we have to say, these sayings can only be uttered amongst each other and be appreciated and valued. And that's one of the tests that you give to see if somebody has any real good communication or they enjoy walking among swines or they doing too much fellowship with unfruitful works. You throw something out there that's holy and throw something out there that's pearl and see how they deal with that pearl. If the scriptures say that lest they trample it under their feet, if they do that, then they're operating in the mindset of a swine and a dog, and they're not really fit for the salvation. A lot of people, of all people, 2/3 just ain't fit for salvation. When it comes down to it, they just wrapped up in their world, wrapped up in their mind, wrapped up in getting their dollar, wrapped up in their bread, wrapped up in their families, wrapped up in their, you know, the curses, you know. But you weren't put here to serve captivity. You weren't put here to be slaves, right? Is Israel homeborn slaves? You weren't put here so that you could, you know, you weren't created so that you could just be a servant. We are in a servitude state of hell, which was rendered by the Father Yahweh for transgressing his laws. This all goes back to who we are as a people. That's that good communication that comes around, that teaches you good manners. You putting off the old man, the former conversation, and you are able to put on things that renew you and rehabilitate you. Now you being able to be built up in the spirit instead of being sent down into your own misery. And that's the way that the 2/3 are walking. They are miserable, really. In all actuality, they wish that they had what you had, and the fact that they can't, they're gonna try to get you to be on their level. They can't come up to your level, so they're gonna bring you down to their level. And which it means they want you to be destroyed too. Romans, the first chapter, in the last few verses, goes into that. And if you look in the NLT, it says they know that they'll be destroyed, but they want you to run to the same excess of rioting, so to speak, so that you can be destroyed too. Their goal is not to save themselves, but to destroy you along with them. Misery loves company. So a lot of times you might thinking you got a friend out here in this world, you got somebody you gotta really, who got your best interest, and then ain't that. They just want to see you fall the way they falling. And here it is, all of a sudden you were falling, but then you came across this word and you started talking about being saved and delivered and destruction in World War III and the MOTB, and they looking at you like, yo, what, you was just on the path with me. We was headed to the same direction. They don't know where they're going, but they was heading in the same direction. All of a sudden, you made an about turn. It's like the Lord pulled you out with that net. That net gets casted, and then you pull in the fruit or you pull in the fish. Some of them is going to be good. Some of them is going to be bad. And you see how this word have you depart ways from old past and even have you depart ways from people. And so there's going to be a continuation of that. It's not going to slow down. It's not going to stop. There's going to be a continuation up until we out of here of those that are on the righteous path separate from those that are on the path towards evil, towards darkness, towards destruction. And there is clearly different paths that you can walk on, right? That we just read it, Proverbs 13:20. He that walketh through wise men shall be wise. So it's a walk. And again, does that mean physically walking? No, that means you are entertaining the conversation of a wise man, that you are around to learn from a wise man, that you are being quiet so that you can comprehend the sayings of a wise man so that you could be renewed. You understand now you're being guided by Yahweh Bashem Yahushua through these wise men who he put in your life. You were able to heal. There's certain things that you know, this is like a self-help journey that you on, that the body and the brotherhood able to assist you on. You know, you ain't, you know, you felt like you was going circling the drain before you came into this truth. And now you're being assisted back to, you know, your old self. You're being motivated back into this truth that's able to save your souls, man. This is real rehabilitation before the actual event happens. You saved from yourself before you actually get saved and delivered from destruction. All right, you were your worst enemy. You always will be your worst enemy, and so the brotherhood is really here to help you deal with that, overcome that. You know, that's that. That's that. You know, that's that. That's that help. That's that rehab. You know, again, that's how Bashem Shah provides. Um, let's see here. This is Sirach 18 and 19. Learn before you speak and use restraint in your words. A wise man will be silent until the right moment. Only the truth teaches you that. Otherwise, you learn to just babble on and go on. No, you're supposed to be real concise with the words. You're supposed to be real intact, real faithful, man, real honest, real sincere amongst the body, amongst the brethren. You know, that's how you keep your garments, basically, you know, pure. You keep your garments white, you know. Again, the analogy that Elder Rum makes a lot is that, you know, somebody in all white, with your worst enemy is the mechanic. You know, his hands is dirty, his face is dirty, anything that you could touch, but he want to come over here and check this car out. You're gonna have to tell him, nah, man, you know, to be honest with you, I'm too clean for that. And you know, that saying will sound you know, overwhelming to somebody. They'll hate you and resent you. The mechanic will resent you unless he's wise himself. He say he wouldn't even try to get you caught in that situation. Why would you want me to dirty myself up for this little 5 minutes that you about to show me something? Matter of fact, tell me, or I'll come back later, you know, in some clothes that are appropriate for that. But you know, again, you always got your garments. You always keeping your garments. So in that sense, you always got to tell the mechanic no, right? Because we constantly watching over our garments, making sure that they clean. There's an actual we've been proposed for a marriage. We've sitting at the tables now, ready for the marriage of the elect. We are passionate in about the return of our Messiah. We are what's it called, in attendance at a wedding, at our own weddings, man. We're waiting for the bridegroom to show up. The scriptures say at midnight, the bridegroom coming. And those that were ready for him and had their oil and kept their oils and waited for him, got to enter into the chambers. And those that weren't, by that time the doors was closed. They were too busy looking for more oil. They couldn't find their way anymore. And so the scripture always alludes to those that continue. All right. And that's what you have amongst the body. You're not gonna have brothers that really tell you otherwise, you know. You're gonna have brothers that tell you, man, the better your balance is, the better off you're gonna be. You know, the more you understand the fear of the Lord, the better off you're gonna be. All right. Sirach 30 and 21 says, do not give yourself over to sorrow and do not distress yourself deliberately. A joyful heart is life itself, and rejoicing lengthens one's days. A cheerful and good heart will have a feast of its own. And that's what we commune together and believe, man, that the brotherhood is here for that reason. You know, again, we like a self. For those that want to help they self, this is where the body is good for. The body ain't going to be good for those that don't want to help themselves. The body ain't good for those that think they got it all. Yahweh Shah said, you know, those that are in need of physician, come, you know, and we'll heal you. And he went on healing and doing miracles to those that believed that was in the situation, but their faith helped them. So this is faith-based support that you gain in here. You got to believe. That's the entrance into the gate, is through faith, right? In order to get this rehabilitation and this healing and this growth and, you know, that help that you need from the body and from the church, that help that the body is there for, you know, the power that comes through the church. In order to have that, you got to be able to assist yourself. The first person you got to be able to want to help out is you. You know, you ask somebody, can you give me a hand up? And then you get that hand up. But if you just looking at why you don't get, you know, try to direct somebody and you ain't help yourself yet, it's not going to work like that. But this is the journey into being complete and being whole. And through this word, we get healing, right? The main job of the Akim ain't to put money in your pocket, it's to show you, to break down these scriptures to you, break down this role of these scriptures in your world, and how it should always be the main purpose. It should always be your main focus. It should always be your strength in times of trouble. It's going to be how Bashim Yahshua. It's not going to be how cool you were. It's not going to be how cool your clothes are. It's not going to be how how wild you was, or them cool ass nights that you spent out of town, and how lit your social media is. All right. It ain't gonna be none of that. It's gonna be about how do you have the names, and did you take that oil with you? Right. So that means you gotta constantly and consistently put off the world in order to be where you're supposed to be at, and be learning what you're supposed to be learning. Right. So constantly, brothers, if I could oblige or besiege brothers of anything, it'd be to make sure that this truth is always your number one focus and your goal. And this is you're here also to grow. You didn't just come back to lollygag into the Lord. You just needed a safe space until the Lord get back. No, you're here to grow. That's one of the super most important purposes that you hear. It's a transformation that happens, right? You transform by the renewing of your mind. There's a transformation that happens. There's a learning. You go through a learning or growth phases, and there's growing pains along associated with that. There's feelings of, you feel like you ain't seen people in a while, or you feel like you missing out every so often, or you don't feel that at all. And the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshua super blessed you with, you like, man, you said dead set. And ultimately we all strive to get to that level. Scriptures say, mark you the perfect man. Usually it's a brother who, have completely put off the world. He don't really care about none of them things that he came from. He don't care about the parts of town. He don't care about, he don't care about really. He cares about the body, the church. He cares about building up together. He's that brother in the gym, maintaining his focus, not literally, but figuratively. He's the one who you see in the gym. He getting in growth, man. You seen him come from a small, his arms was all small and weak, and then by 6 months later, he took it seriously. Now you see he got the muscles, man, because personal development was a big factor that plays a role in this truth, man. You got to develop. You got to be able to grow. There's a story brothers used to bring out a lot. Finally, spirit finally kicked in. There's a story brothers used to bring out a lot, in which it's about the crab, or a lobster. I believe it's a crab or a horseshoe crab. And I think that either the horseshoe crab or the actual crab, well, they got this exoskeleton that they can shed. And I think it's the horseshoe crab. And the way he knows in which it's time to go to a new shell is pain, because he grows too large for the shell he's in at that time. And so the pain triggers him and alerts him that he needs a new shell. And simply, there's even a science to how they do it. They all line up, the biggest shell to the smaller shell, and they get out. Each one of them get out and walk to the next shell over. And they have this beautiful way of how to grow, and it's tactful, and it's this helpful amongst each other. They work to grow. And that's all it is in the body, in the church. You understand now that you're working together to grow. And if you say you got it all, your job, you would be the most important person to make sure and facilitate that everybody else should be growing, and you should be assisting constantly. If you really got it like that, you should be in assistance constantly with the brotherhood, and that's what it feels like. The Lord keep bringing in new members for a reason, so you can know what it's like, so you could tell that brother what it's like, so you've been through it now and you understand what it's like. You understand that you in pain, where the pain come from when your muscles break down. You're going to tell that brother, hey, look, this is the stage in which there's going to be a time in which you want to just give up. That's how bad the muscles going to hurt. They're going to tear all apart, but eventually you get used to that pain, and then that pain don't even affect you no more. That's what happens naturally in the workout process. Your muscles begin to start working for you. Eventually your muscles are pushing up that weight. You ain't straining like you used to. And so there's mad benefits, right? crazy amounts of benefits that come with this recovery, and we all amongst each other rehabilitating at the same time. So all of these challenges brothers dealing with, it's all a loop, an echo chamber, if you will. It's the same healing and the same hurt and the same pain and the same development and the same transformation, the same support and the same logic and the same understanding, the same body and the same principles, the same doctrine, the same teaching, the same. We doing it constantly over and over and again. You're empowered by that, through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shemel Shah. That's what we set up to do. Let me see if I got any more. And if not, I'm just going to close it. All right. So we just read, don't give yourself over to sorrow and do not distress yourself deliberately. Man, you don't put yourself in situations that you're going to lose what you gained. You already gained something. You dropped the penny just by understanding the names and believing on the names. You done dropped a few pennies into the bank account now. Right? You got to endure into the end in order to reap them rewards. Right? And that's with getting it back with 100 times of interest. All right. Wisdom of Solomon 6:12. Wisdom is radiant and unfading, and she is easily discerned by those who love her and is found by those who seek her. Call Allah Shemel Shah. You got wisdom, right? We're entertained by wisdom. Think about that. You got a good woman, you get entertained by her. She's everything to you, right? That your world pretty much focuses around your family and the main person is your wife. And this is in a perfect world, right? Understanding now that's not dealing with right now, but that's just the analogy of wisdom. She's personified in a woman. You take her, you treat her right, and you know that she's going to give more to you, right? And so this is what it's like being in this truth. You easily put off other women for this one that's radiant and unfading. This is the woman that keeps you alive, that keeps you healthy and whole, right? And she's found of those that seek her. And we all got this beautiful woman that we dealing with, Sophia, this wisdom. And with her, we get all these advantages. Again, you get built up in the spirit. And how much did you pay to get built up in the spirit? Well, you paid with your time and your energy. And that's really a small resource in the sense of what you get back from it. It's a small investment and you reap such a reward. It's a crazy ROI, return on investment, for dealing with wisdom. Wisdom of Solomon 1:4. For wisdom is a kindly spirit and will not free a blasphemer from the guilt of his words, because Yahweh is witness of his inmost feelings and a true observer of his heart and a hearer of his tongue. So there it is, man. It's a kindly spirit, but it'll judge you if you ain't right. So guess what? You give yourself over to wisdom so you can get right. You be guided by this, right? We're all being guided. So don't just make this a pit stop when you're amongst the body and you just, it's just a pit stop. It's a boys club. Okay, I've been in a biker gang. It is cool how it is. I've been in the Bloods of the Crips. This is just like that, but it's just Bible based, faith based. Or you could say I've been in the Boy Scouts, or I've been in a frat, or I've been in all type of groups that you used to be involved with. But this ain't nothing like it, because you actually getting support, but you got to be there for yourself. You got to be accountable on your own too. Right? The scripture said, bear ye your own cross, bear ye your own burdens. So you actually got to be holding your cross. This is part of counting the cost. Are you able and capable of dealing with this? Fighting your good fight of faith, or do you constantly need somebody to fight it for you? Hey, the resources is here. Well, the thing about resources is not nobody going to come to your house, knocking your door and says, yo, pick up your resource. No, they're going to tell you that the resources is here. You're supposed to know when the resources arrive and what resources are available for you. All right. Once you know the resources are available for you, you go ahead and you deal with it. You go ahead and you get it. You go ahead and you heap them up. All the resources are here. You got brothers you could talk to in certain situations. You got brothers know about all types of things, cover a whole span. That's the resources that's available. And you ain't going to be made any better by just staring at that brother with all them resources and not asking how you can get like that, or learning from them. Simply, you might not even say anything, but you're supposed to like actually learn from that brother so that you could learn to acquire these things. A lot of these good attributes that brothers had, they wasn't acquired in the world. Many of them was acquired in the truth. Right? With the few men you have, many men discovered their strength in the truth. Many men was transformed. We all became transformed by this truth, by the renewing of their minds, but walking in this light, it would do it for real, And so that's how you get that development. Abu Rabdazar, this point was made and the understanding was, was clear and articulating these points, and it was edifying. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Abu Rabdazar till next time. Shalom.